One of the primary challenges when researching German generals of World War II is distinguishing between the facts and the myths surrounding these individuals. The repeated examination of their backgrounds and characters adds to this complexity. This is especially true for Erwin Rommel, known as the Desert Fox. Numerous legends surround Rommel, including debates about his military prowess and his role in the plot to assassinate Hitler. Despite his legendary status, Rommel was a straightforward individual whose success was a result of his skills and personal attributes. Even though he had no military background in his family, Rommel aspired to be an aviation engineer from a young age. His performance in World War I secured him a position in the small army of the Weimar Republic. His close relationship with Hitler facilitated his success in the Western Campaign and his appointment as commander of the Afrika Korps. Despite his failures in North Africa, his role in defending Western Europe preserved his reputation. Faced with accusations of involvement in the assassination attempt on Hitler, he chose suicide to protect his family. Rommel's legend is a blend of facts and propaganda that has endured to this day. Erwin Johannes Eugen Rommel was born on November 15, 1891, in Heidenheim, Germany. He was the second of 4 children in a family where his father was a mathematics teacher and his mother was the daughter of a local government official. As a young boy, Rommel was interested in extracurricular activities and was groomed for a military career. In 1910, he joined the 124th Infantry Regiment in Weingarten as an officer cadet and received training at the Kriegsschule in Danzig. Graduating in 1911, he met Lucia Maria Mollin and became a lieutenant in 1912, starting his role in training recruits. During World War I, Rommel served on the Verdun front, where he was wounded and awarded the Iron Cross. In 1915, he returned to Verdun, showing outstanding leadership and earning the Iron Cross First Class. By 1916, he was promoted to first lieutenant and assigned to the Württemberg Mountain Battalion, which excelled in mobile warfare. Rommel's daring actions in Romania and Italy, particularly during the assault on Mount Kosner in 1917, marked significant points in his career. By late 1917, the German army had fully developed the Stoßtrupp, assault detachment tactics, designed to penetrate deep into enemy lines. This approach required skilled and resolute commanders, and suitable fronts included the collapsing Russian Empire or Italy. The Germans aimed to break through the Italian lines along the Isonzo River to reach Venice and threaten the Po Valley, potentially forcing Italy out of the war and allowing German forces to be redirected to the Western Front. The Alpenkorps, a mountain unit, and the Royal Bavarian Infantry Guard Regiment were tasked with capturing strategic positions on the Kolovrat Ridge on Mount Matager. On October 24, 1917, following the capture of the Italian forward lines, Erwin Rommel and his detachment launched an assault on Mount Matager. Rommel methodically captured enemy positions, taking hundreds of Italian soldiers prisoner and gaining control of the strategically significant Kolovrat Ridge. While the Royal Bavarian Infantry Guard Regiment was engaged with Mount Cook, Rommel maneuvered his 4 companies into a valley behind Mount Matager, capturing another 2,000 Italian soldiers. These successes precipitated the Battle of Caporetto, seen as a partial victory for the Germans. In early November, Rommel crossed the Tagliamento River, but his attack on the Italian positions guarding the passage failed due to delayed infantry support while he organized machine gun fire. He would ensure not to repeat such a mistake. Rommel's unit crossed the Piave River, capturing Longarone, pushing the number of captured enemy troops to over 10,000 since the operation's start. In November, Rommel's unit was withdrawn from the front line and redeployed to the Grappa Massif with the Württemberg Mountain Battalion, WDT. On December 17th, Rommel was repositioned, but while on leave, he did not rejoin the WDT or the front, being appointed as a staff officer at the headquarters of the L-Kampfswehr Corps on January 11, 1918. For his exceptional performance during the capture of the Kolovrat Ridge, Rommel was recommended for the prestigious German military decoration, the Pour le Mérite, Blue Max. Although initially awarded to Lieutenants Ferdinand Schörner and Walter Schnieber instead of Rommel, subsequent objections led to the awarding of the medal to both Rommel and Major Sprucer on December 18, 1918. Before the armistice on November 11, 1918, Rommel was promoted to captain on October 18, 1918. On December 21, 1918, he rejoined the 124th Infantry Regiment, participating in the suppression of local uprisings. In 1921, Rommel pledged allegiance to the Weimar Republic and joined the Reichswehr, commanding the 4th Company of the 13th Infantry Division in Stuttgart. Rommel, like other officers who served the military for over a decade, faced various tests and, if unsuccessful, would have to retake them the following year. Despite not excelling in these tests, Rommel served as an instructor at the Infantry Schule in Dresden, utilizing his extensive experience and knowledge. Promoted to Brigadier General in 1939, Rommel commanded the 7th Panzer Division in 1940. On May 10, 1940, he launched an assault in the Dinant region, breaking through French lines and achieving numerous successes. Rommel's division played a critical role in resisting Allied counterattacks at Arras, contributing to the success of the rapid German advance. Rommel's military career peaked when he was appointed as the commander of the Afrika Korps in 1941, earning the nickname Desert Fox for his operations in North Africa. On May 23rd, Rommel's division was positioned south of the Dunkirk pocket along the Aar Canal. Due to Hitler's halt order, the assault did not commence until May 26th. The division crossed the canal the next day and advanced towards Lille. Before the encircled Allied forces could surrender, the 7th Panzer Division was withdrawn from the front by the end of May, after Rommel had tallied his achievements, capturing 6,249 soldiers, seizing 48 tanks, and destroying 313 tanks. The second phase of the Western Campaign began on June 5th, with Rommel's 7th Panzer Division advancing towards the Somme River between Amiens and Abbeville. After intense fighting to break through the French defenses, the division reached the port of Saint-Valery between Dieppe and Le Havre on June 10th, achieving a significant breakthrough. On June 12th, the remaining elements of the French Corps and the 51st British Division surrendered at this point. The 7th Panzer Division captured 12,727 soldiers, including a dozen generals. On June 17th, the division advanced towards Cherbourg, covering 240 kilometers in a day and reaching its destination the next day. The Cherbourg fortress surrendered on June 20th, and the following day, the French began negotiations for an armistice with the Germans. Since May 10th, Rommel's Panzer Division had captured a total of 97,648 enemy soldiers, seized 277 field guns, 64 anti-tank guns, 458 tanks and armored vehicles, and over 4,000 trucks. Their losses were higher compared to other panzer divisions: 682 soldiers killed, 1,646 wounded, 296 missing, and 42 tanks rendered unusable. On May 17th and 21, Rommel received 1939 clasps for his first and second class Iron Crosses, and on May 27th, he was awarded the Knight's Cross. If fate had not been on Rommel's side, his career could have taken a very different path. Following the British capture of Cyrenaica and the defeat of the Italian army in the region during the Compass operation in North Africa, Hitler decided to send a buffer force to prevent the British from advancing on Tripoli. On February 3rd, 1941, Rommel was appointed as the commander of the force planned to be sent to Africa, replacing Hans von Funk. At the same time, the force was upgraded to corps level, and on February 19th, it was named the German Afrika Korps. Promoted to the rank of Major General on February 7th, Rommel set foot on African soil on the 12th. Here, he would manage a series of fluctuating battles for 2 years, earning the nickname Desert Fox, receiving promotions, and being decorated with medals. After recapturing Cyrenaica, Rommel was awarded the Oak Leaves to his Knight's Cross on March 20th and promoted to the rank of Lieutenant General on July 1st. On July 15th, under his command, the Afrika Panzer Group was formed. After the Axis forces were once again driven out of Cyrenaica in December 1941, Rommel launched another offensive in January 1942, this time advancing to the defensive positions at Tobruk. This second advance led to the addition of swords to his Knight's Cross on January 20th. On January 30th, he was promoted to the rank of general, and the force under his command was renamed the Afrika Panzer Army. In May 1942, Rommel attacked the Gazala line defended by British forces, captured Tobruk, and was promoted to the rank of Field Marshal on June 22, 1942. Subsequently, although Axis forces reached El Alamein, they were defeated there in November. After the retreat towards Tunisia, Rommel was given command of the newly formed Army Group Africa. Rommel commanded this unit until March 9th and returned to Europe on that date. On March 11th, diamonds were added to his Knight's Cross. Shortly before Mussolini's overthrow and Italy's exit from the war, on July 15th, 1943, Rommel was given command of Army Group B, stationed in northern Italy. Initially, he was planned to take command of this theater of operations, but Hitler later changed his mind and appointed Kesselring instead. Rommel, however, was sent to northern France on November 5th to oversee the coastal fortifications. From January 1st, 1944, he was once again put in charge of Army Group B, this time in northwest Europe. With the Allied landings in Normandy on June 6th, Rommel found himself on the front line. After being wounded in an air raid on July 17th, he was sent back to Germany. There, facing accusations of involvement in a plot to assassinate Hitler, he committed suicide on October 14th. General Helmuth von Moltke's, chief of the Prussian General Staff 1857-88, famous statement clearly outlines the principle on which modern German warfare was based. No plan survives contact with the enemy. Because the situation on the battlefield often changes quickly, detailed and meticulously prepared plans become almost useless as they do not adapt to changing circumstances. Moltke, while not abandoning planning entirely, emphasized the importance of the initial deployment of forces and their advance to the battlefield, Aufmarsch. He was also aware that the only way to cope with changing situations on the battlefield was through flexibility based on personal initiative. This led to the emergence of Auftragstaktik, a method of command rather than a tactical system. In this method, the commander would explain the objective to be achieved to his subordinates, and they would decide how to achieve this goal considering the forces at their disposal. Thus, unit commanders were expected to quickly and accurately assess changing situations and implement these decisions through appropriate orders to their subordinates. At the beginning of the 20th century, long-standing entrenched tactical systems imposed certain restrictions on the application of this command system. When Rommel was still a military student, German infantry was trained according to the 1906 manual, which was not much different from the 1888 manual. Although machine guns and artillery were considered, the star of the battlefield was still seen as the infantry. The fundamental basis of the attack strategy was to rapidly advance a strong infantry line, up to battalion strength, in close order, and deliver a decisive blow by quickly subjugating the enemy. The preparatory fire conducted before the assault aimed not at completely annihilating the enemy, but at breaking their will. Therefore, suppressing the enemy completely at the moment of the final assault was considered the infantry's task. However, as machine guns increased in number and newly emerging defensive systems deepened, the expectation that fast-moving infantry lines could completely overpower the enemy became increasingly unrealistic. When World War I broke out, Rommel and other German officers learned to carry out short but powerful infantry assaults aimed at putting pressure on the enemy in their positions, advancing along predetermined lines in the shortest possible time. This method of execution could be instantly altered based on information about the situation obtained during the battle. It was a response to the enemy's strategy of aiming to break the enemy's will to fight through prolonged battles, continuous infantry assaults, and bombardments. Rommel adopted and developed this approach. His book, Infantry Attacks, provides a detailed account of those days. In this work, he emphasizes that the situation on the battlefield changes rapidly and that it is crucial to exert maximum pressure on the enemy by attacking strongly with different elements and ensuring continuous contact between units. He had already concluded that deep penetrations from specific points should be extended over a broader area. By launching sudden assaults based on information from observation and reconnaissance, targeting weak points in the enemy's fortified positions and infiltrating from these points, Rommel achieved great successes in the Argonne forests on the northern sector of the Western Front and during the Battle of Caporetto on the Italian front in 1917. These successes with this flexible method led to the updating of the infantry manual after World War I and the publication of a new manual in 1921 based on the experiences gained. The core of Rommel's understanding of warfare was speed and flexibility. In his notes on the 1940 campaign, Rommel highlights the importance of time by stating, "The sole criterion for a commander in fulfilling an order should be the time allotted to him. The commander must utilize all his means to complete the task within the given time." Furthermore, he emphasizes that the officers of a panzer division should think and act freely within the framework of the overall plan, and that they should take initiative without waiting for orders. The officers of a panzer division must learn to think and act freely within the general plan. They do not need to wait for future orders. Rommel's mindset led to some problems with his subordinates. According to Rommel, his subordinates should possess the physical and mental abilities to overcome challenging conditions. However, Rommel complained about the lack of these qualities. As stated in Truppenführung, Rommel expected his subordinates to possess qualities such as habitual physical exercise to cope with the most challenging conditions, rigorous self-discipline, determination, self-confidence, and courage. He demanded these qualities from his subordinates as he possessed them himself. During his convalescence after being wounded on July 17, 1944, Rommel's notes on modern military leadership clearly show this mindset. According to Rommel, future tactical-level commanders should have not only superior intellectual capabilities but also strong character. Rommel noted that the motorization of warfare made tactical possibilities extremely diverse, making it difficult to predict the course of the battle. Therefore, he emphasized that the key to future battlefield success would be the flexibility of the mind, passionate acceptance of responsibility, a perfect blend of boldness and attention, and superior control over combat units. Rommel's approach was the cornerstone of his tactical successes and command abilities. His ability to move quickly and make flexible decisions by taking the initiative were the qualities that made Rommel a successful commander. However, it is also clear that these expectations could create pressure on his subordinates and sometimes lead to communication problems. Rommel's success on the battlefield was partly due to working with officers who could meet these high standards and keep up with him. Rommel's ability to quickly assess and act on the battlefield was a natural talent. On January 29, 1915, while commanding the 9th Company of the 9th Infantry Regiment, the situation he encountered and his response to it demonstrate these abilities early in his military career. During their initial assaults, they easily captured the 3 stages of the French defensive line. However, after advancing 1.5 kilometers, they encountered a heavily fortified French position protected by dense, barbed wire. Seeing his soldiers' reluctance, Rommel resorted to desperate measures and forced the platoon leader to advance. This method worked, and they soon captured 4 French pillboxes. However, as the French began attacking from the flanks, Rommel's unit was surrounded. Rommel had 3 options: fight to the last bullet, try to retreat through the barbed wire, or attack. Rommel chose to attack, and this bold decision created confusion in the enemy's lines. As a result, Rommel's unit managed to withdraw without heavy casualties. This incident shows Rommel's ability to make bold decisions on the battlefield and his skill in maintaining his soldiers' morale. Rommel was adept at quickly assessing the situation and exploiting the enemy's weaknesses through rapid action. This was a characteristic he frequently exhibited in the following years. Rommel expected high standards from his subordinates and did not hesitate to push them to meet these standards. In February 1940, when Rommel took command of the 7th Panzer Division, he put his philosophy into practice. During the campaign, The division's nickname became Ghost Division because of its rapid and unpredictable movements. Rommel's ability to assess situations quickly and make bold decisions played a significant role in this success. He advanced deep into enemy territory, often exceeding his superiors' expectations and achieving remarkable results with his unorthodox tactics. Rommel's success in North Africa was another example of his ability to adapt quickly and seize opportunities. In the desert warfare, where the terrain was vast and open, speed and flexibility were crucial. Rommel's tactics, emphasizing rapid movement and surprise attacks, allowed him to achieve significant successes against the British forces. His ability to exploit weaknesses in the enemy's positions and outmaneuver them was a hallmark of his command style. However, Rommel's approach also had its challenges. His demand for high standards from his subordinates could lead to conflicts and difficulties in communication. Some of his subordinates struggled to keep up with his pace and expectations. Despite these challenges, Rommel's successes on the battlefield were a testament to his extraordinary abilities as a military commander. Rommel's legacy as a brilliant tactician and a charismatic leader endures. His emphasis on speed, flexibility, and initiative, combined with his ability to make bold decisions, set him apart as one of the most remarkable commanders of World War II. His approach to warfare continues to be studied and admired by military leaders and historians alike. In the early hours of November 24th, Rommel shared his plan with Krühl. However, Krühl proposed a more cautious solution, suggesting that the enemy be pursued and the area east of the front line cleared. Rommel disagreed and told Brigadier General Johann von Ravenstein, who commanded the division formerly known as the 5th Light Division, now the 21st Panzer Division, "You have a chance to end the entire campaign tonight." According to German official history, the subsequent events barely resembled a well-grounded textbook military operation. Due to the delay of the 15th Panzer Division and its absence at the operation's starting point, Rommel began the dash-to-the-wire operation with only the 21st Panzer Division. The operation quickly turned into a series of skirmishes with the British at various points. By evening, Rommel's forces were spread over more than 70 kilometers. The vanguard reached the border around 16 o'clock, while the 15th Panzer Division could only get within 35 kilometers of the border by evening. Rommel, the commander of the Afrika Panzer Group, spent the night with Brigadier General Alfred Gauss and Krühl on the other side of the Egyptian border. However, over the next 2 days, the dash to the wire devolved into a series of uncoordinated skirmishes with no clear objectives, with orders coming from 3 different sources. Some of these skirmishes were directly managed by Rommel from the battlefield, but communication between him and the Afrika Panzer Group headquarters suffered because Rommel issued orders based on the front line, a concept not familiar to his headquarters. Meanwhile, panic was rampant among the British forces, but Rommel failed to reach the headquarters and forward supply centers of the British 8th Army. British forward airfields also remained intact. On the 26th, British forces from Tobruk and advancing New Zealand forces linked up at Ed Duda, breaking the siege. Rommel ordered the 2 panzer divisions to retreat the next day. The dash to the wire brought nothing but casualties and stress to the German forces. Although the Afrika Korps launched a counterattack in the breakthrough area between November 30th and December 2nd, they failed to besiege Tobruk. The turning point in this chain of battles came on December 5th, 6, when Rommel learned that he would receive minimal supplies until January and that adequate reinforcements would not arrive from Germany. As a result, Rommel decided to retreat to the Gazala line west of Tobruk and subsequently requested permission to withdraw Axis forces from Sollum. This request was denied, and the forces in Sollum would surrender in January 1942. On December 15th, the British assault on the Gazala line led Rommel to decide to abandon all of Cyrenaica and retreat further west. The retreat was organized efficiently, preventing a disaster similar to the one the Italians experienced a year earlier, partly due to the British logistical problems, the provision of 45 tanks to Krühl for counterattacks, and Krühl's successful counterattacks on December 28th and 30, inflicting significant losses on British armored units. The last German rearguards left Agidabia on January 6, 1942, and on January 22, Rommel launched another advance towards Cyrenaica. Once again, the British were caught off guard. Although they managed to avoid encirclement in the initial stages, the German forces entered Emsus on January 25th. Mussolini urged Rommel not to advance further, but Rommel once again disregarded the higher command's order. Taking advantage of the unstable situation, the Afrika Korps made a feint attack on Mechili on January 29th and then attacked Benghazi with their main forces. The capture of Benghazi and the destruction of the Indian Brigade in the area once again opened the road to Tobruk. Immediately after being promoted to general on January 30th, Rommel rushed along the coastal road as the British forces retreated. The advancing German forces halted on February 6th in front of the British Gazala defense line. Rommel had stopped the advance. Indeed, his demands were exceedingly heavy. Deciding on an early offensive to exploit the enemy's weakness could be seen as correct, but only if it led to a decisive victory, as desired by those planning the war in Germany. What Rommel achieved was a half-baked victory. This led to the Germans stalling and the British counterattack succeeding. Rommel's first and biggest mistake was evident. He had not considered the condition of his own troops. They were neither adequately trained nor acclimated to the desert conditions. They were not effective enough to act swiftly to prevent the Australians from withdrawing to Tobruk or to swiftly assault the city afterward. Furthermore, most of the Afrika Korps was still in the process of being transferred to North Africa, and the understrength Axis forces failed to capture the heavily fortified Tobruk as winter approached. This would become the primary reason for their defeat. The Battle of Gazala, which began on May 26th, is known as Rommel's greatest victory in North Africa. It could be said that Rommel achieved this by avoiding the mistakes he had made during the siege of Tobruk a year earlier. However, this may only be partially accurate, as Rommel had learned his lessons. When conducting operations with limited forces, it is crucial to maintain the coherence of the forces and avoid wasting time unnecessarily. Unlike the battlefields in Europe, where complete encirclement was often a key strategy, such a scenario was less likely in the desert due to the vast, open terrain. For Rommel, the destruction of the enemy would not be achieved through encirclement, but rather through a strategy of attrition. This meant weakening the enemy's fighting capability by disrupting their cohesion and exhausting their supplies in open battles. Rommel's tactics required maintaining their own supply lines, using armored units as the spearhead, conducting effective reconnaissance, concealing their intentions, and ensuring rapid movement and organizational integrity among the forces. Rommel named this plan Operation Theseus, and he initiated the attack on the Gazala line on May 26th. This was an audacious move, perhaps the closest Rommel came to rolling the dice. The German divisions trained for night operations advanced south of the line, outflanked it, and by dawn reached the area between El Adem and Akroma. For a moment, the German forces seemed to be drawn into a trap, prompting Rommel to act swiftly. At this juncture, the superiority of German command methods over the British became evident. Rommel assessed the situation, completely revised his plan, and decided to adopt a different approach. During the first 3 days of the battle, he ordered the mobile forces to withdraw westward to protect their supply lines and establish a defensive line against the British mobile forces. This defensive circle battle allowed Rommel to open a supply route to the west and repel the small British counterattacks. By leveraging his experience in desert warfare and demonstrating German command prowess, Rommel achieved significant successes in North Africa. On June 11th, the second major fortified point on the Gazala line, Bir Hachaim, fell to the Axis forces. On June 12-13, Rommel opened the road to Tobruk through a decisive battle in the open terrain. By June 17-19, Tobruk was once again besieged, but this time the assault would not be halted. On June 20th, the garrison in the city surrendered, allowing the Axis forces to seize a vast amount of booty and Rommel to secure his greatest victory. With the enemy decisively defeated and the remaining elements retreating eastward, Rommel saw the same opportunity he had encountered while advancing into Cyrenaica the previous spring. The the Suez Canal, and a final victory in North Africa. Just a day before being promoted to Field Marshal, and even before Hitler signaled on the 24th, Rommel abandoned the planned assault on Malta and dispatched the Afrika Korps to the Egyptian border. By June 26th, the Axis forces were at Mersa Matruh. Rommel won another victory there and continued advancing towards the canal on June 28th. 2 days later, British forces withdrew to the El Alamein line. On July 1st, Rommel attacked this line, using the same tactics he had applied at the Gazala line. His aim, once again, was to break through the enemy lines and force them to fight in the open, where he could destroy them piece by piece. However, the first assault on the El Alamein line ended in failure. A counterattack by the Australians on July 10-11 resulted in the northern Italian forces being routed, marking the first significant setback of the North African campaign. From this point on, Rommel began to taste failure. The Germans attempted a breakthrough similar to the Gazala line at the Battle of Alam Halfa from August 30th to September 6th, referred to by the Germans as the Second Battle of El Alamein. But this attempt proved unsuccessful. With the Panzer Army exhausted and supply shortages looming, Rommel's chances of success here were slim. Once again, as Rommel put it, the immense demands exceeded the capacity and condition of the units under his command. Additionally, he not only underestimated the enemy's capabilities, but also downplayed the challenges posed by the terrain, the harsh climate of the Egyptian desert, and the long supply lines. According to Rommel's writings, the reasons for the defeat at Alam Halfa were clear: inadequate supplies and enemy air superiority. In September 1942, Rommel realized that without sufficient supplies and reinforcements, the campaign would not achieve its ultimate victory at El Alamein. Indeed, the two things he awaited did not arrive. Due to illness from his extended stay in Africa, Rommel returned to Germany on September 23rd to recuperate. His overly optimistic demeanor there was more a reflection of his circumstances, perhaps an attempt to delay the impending British offensive. Rommel anticipated that the imminent British offensive would deliver a significant blow, fundamentally altering the region's balance. The defense at El Alamein exemplified the typical German tactical doctrine that Rommel would later apply in Normandy. This defense relied on a solidly fortified, mine-protected fixed line where troops would repulse enemy attacks from entrenched positions. Should a breach occur, mobile armored units would promptly intervene to restore security. This method was suitable for the terrain and, as Rommel emphasized, essential given the limited supplies and the Axis forces' high mobility. On October 23rd, the British launched a major offensive against El Alamein, and Rommel returned to North Africa the next day, resuming command of the Panzer Army. While the initial phase of the assault proceeded as the Axis forces had hoped, the second wave, starting on October 27th, soon revealed that the enemy's numerical and firepower superiority would capture the Axis-held positions. On November 2nd, Rommel saw that the situation was desperate and ordered all forces to withdraw in an orderly manner to the Fuka line. However, the next day, an order from Hitler instructed them to hold their ground at El Alamein at all costs, presenting no options other than victory or death. Deeply shaken by this directive, Rommel tried to implement it for more than a day. But by the afternoon of November 4th, he assumed full responsibility and ordered the Panzer Army to retreat. Skillfully managed by Rommel, this retreat marked the beginning of a final withdrawal that would conclude in mid-February 1943. The Afrika Panzer Army settled into defensive positions at the Mareth line in Tunisia. After the Allies began invading French North Africa, on November 8, 1942, the Axis forces established a bridgehead at this point. However, it soon became evident that the Axis presence in North Africa was nearing its end. The brief and unsuccessful offensive at the Kasserine Pass from February 1922, 1943, highlighted the inadequacies of the Axis defenses, signaling the imminent conclusion of the Axis presence in North Africa. Rommel's departure from Africa on March 9, 1943, due to command changes and health issues, accelerated the Axis forces' demise in North Africa. With the end of the North African campaign, Rommel's image suffered a significant blow. After the Axis forces' surrender in Tunisia on May 13, 1943, Rommel fell into a depression. However, he returned to command on July 23rd, this time to defend against an Allied invasion in Greece. Following Mussolini's ousting and Italy's surrender, Rommel found himself commanding Army Group B in northern Italy. On September 8, 1943, Rommel's forces took control of the entire region and disarmed hundreds of thousands of Italian soldiers within a week. Rommel hoped to take command in Italy, but his defense plan was rejected by Hitler. Rommel had proposed withdrawing to northern Italy for a flexible defense, but Hitler appointed Kesselring instead, disappointing Rommel. On November 5, 1943, Rommel was sent to northern France to oversee the construction of fortifications along the Atlantic Wall. These activities brought Rommel back into the battlefields. While inspecting the fortifications along the Atlantic Wall, Rommel worked to strengthen the defensive line and take measures against potential Allied landings. However, there were different strategic understandings between Rommel and other German commanders. Commanders like Rundstedt and Schweppenberg advocated for positioning panzer divisions inland to defend against the main Allied landing point. In contrast, Rommel preferred stopping the Allies at the beaches and launching swift counterattacks using flexible defense and operational mobility. When the Normandy invasion began, Rommel's defense plans suggested keeping German forces close to the beaches. However, Hitler's directives had moved most of the panzer divisions inland, allowing the Allies to establish a foothold on the beaches. Rommel's proposals were not fully accepted by Hitler, contributing to the failure in the Normandy invasion. On July 17, 1944, Rommel's headquarters vehicle was hit by an RAF fighter bomber, resulting in severe injuries. This event ended Rommel's military career, and 3 months later, he was forced to commit suicide. Rommel's impact and strategies in Normandy did not change the course of the war. However, the historical Rommel legend was shaped by his defensive and counter-offensive strategies during the latter stages of his career. Rommel's writings reveal the contrasts between the victories and defeats in the North African front. According to Rommel, successes in war are not solely due to good plans, but also stem from the enemy's mistakes. The errors made by the British in the African campaign provided a foundation for Rommel's victories.